The Horus Heresy was the first and most destructive civil war in the history of the Imperium. Half of the Primarchs, along with their Astartes legions, Morphal auxiliaries, and Mechanicum forces, turned against the Emperor. It was a dark age of brother killing brother, loyalty divided, where yesterday's comrades became today's traitors and enemies. The entire galaxy was engulfed in the flames of war. But why did Horus betray the Emperor? Horus was the greatest of the Primarchs, the Warmaster, and a paragon among his brothers. He commanded armies with godlike skill, defeating the Imperium's various enemies. He always considered the bigger picture, striving to minimize casualties. It could be said that Horus and the Emperor were both father and son and brothers in arms. They fought side by side, crushing countless Xenos and tyrants. They lived and died together, shedding blood for the same ideal on the same battlefields. So why did Horus betray the Emperor? Was it because his father abandoned the Primarchs and Astartes to return to Terra, leaving Horus feeling lost among mortals? Was it the anger that those soldiers who died fighting for the Emperor's ideals in the Crusade received no proper glory? Or was it due to the whispered corruptions and provocations of the warp gods? There are too many stories to tell between Horus and the Emperor, and too many reasons to explain. Regardless of what finally broke Horus's loyalty and made him decide to turn his blade against the Emperor, the root cause of this betrayal might be the Emperor himself. The Emperor did not love the Primarchs. In fact, he did not love any individual standing before him. He loved humanity as a whole. He loved the species. The Emperor abandoned personal emotions and humanity, placing the interests of the entire species above all individuals, including himself. He could bear responsibilities that ordinary people could not, and make decisions on issues ordinary people could not face. The Primarchs called him father, but this father did not treat them as sons, because he could never be just one person's father. He could only be the Emperor of all mankind. As the Emperor, he had no energy to spare for humanity in the emotional sense. He cared only about his duty. Perhaps this was the point the traitors found most unacceptable. Compared to their creator, the Primarchs were much more like mortals.
Although they possessed powerful bodies, brilliant minds, and strong wills, they were also influenced by various external factors. Primarchs could feel joy and sorrow. Their anger could be shifted. Their personalities and values differed due to the different cultures they were raised in. Thus, some Primarchs got along well, while others were at each other's throats. Without the Emperor's suppression, these superhuman leaders with such different personalities might have long since gone to war with each other. During the Great Crusade, 2 Primarchs and their forces, the 2nd and 11th Legions, were completely erased by the Emperor for unknown reasons. It can be said that the Emperor treated the Thunder Warriors, Primarchs, and Astartes, these genetically enhanced soldiers he created, just like tools. After returning to Terra, the Emperor formed a government body responsible for managing imperial affairs called the Council of Terra. There were absolutely no seats for Primarchs or Astartes on this council. The members of the Council of Terra were composed of mortal politicians from various administrative departments, the leader of the Astropaths responsible for interstellar communication, the Captain General of the Custodian Guard who answered only to the Emperor, and representatives of the Mechanicum from the Forge world of Mars. The First Lord of the Council was the Emperor's most trusted and loyal mortal advisor, the powerful Psyker Malkador the Sigillite. The Emperor handed over all government management work to this council, while he retreated into the massive laboratory beneath the Imperial Palace to wholeheartedly begin his next plan. The Emperor intended to use technology left behind by the ancient wise race, the Old Ones, to build a faster-than-light travel device that would allow humanity to completely break free from the warp, the Webway project. To avoid alerting the enemy, the construction of this device was kept in absolute secrecy. Only a few of the Emperor's most trusted confidants knew the details of this plan. While the Emperor remained shut away in his laboratory, the Astartes and Primarchs on the front lines of the Great Crusade were confused by Terra's deliberate exclusion of them from the core of imperial politics. Some of them began to feel that this move by the Emperor was a betrayal of the Primarchs and the Astartes legions.
Although the Warmaster was also angry at the decisions made on Terra, this alone was not enough to make Horus betray the Emperor. He was shaken, yes, but at that moment, the Warmaster only wanted to finish the Great Crusade quickly, conquer the entire galaxy, and then have a good talk about these issues with his increasingly distant father. However, dark forces were already stirring. In the early 31st millennium, when the Warmaster led his legion, now renamed the Sons of Horus, In the battle on the moon of Davin, the incredibly powerful Primarch fell due to a wound caused by a single sword. This was the beginning of Horus's corruption. And this battle, this sword, and the mastermind behind it all were none other than the Wordbearers Legion and their Primarch, Lorgar Aurelian. Lorgar Aurelian was the Primarch of the 17th Legion. In his infancy, he was thrown by the warp vortex on a planet called Colchis. This planet was originally a technologically advanced human colony, but due to the influence of warp storms, Colchis had devolved into a feudal society where slavery and religion were prevalent. Growing up in such an environment, Lorgar had already become a fanatical religious figure by the time the Emperor found him. He believed that humans were fragile and that only religion and faith could protect and save the world. Lorgar had foreseen the Emperor's arrival on this planet when he was young. Through brutal religious wars, Lorgar wiped out other factions on Colchis. When the Imperial Crusade fleet arrived, Colchis had already been unified by Lorgar. Upon seeing the Emperor, the Primarch immediately decided that he was the savior from the prophecies. He led the believers of the entire planet in offering the most devout worship to the Emperor. Afterward, Lorgar joined the Great Crusade and took command of the 17th Astartes Legion. Although the Emperor denied his divinity to Lorgar and explained the imperial truth to him, the fanatical Primarch maintained his faith. He also passed this faith on to the Astartes under his command. From then on, every warrior in the Legion became a missionary. They began writing scriptures, building temples, and cultivating believers on the worlds they conquered. The word-bearers sang the Emperor's praises everywhere, while also bringing the harshest punishments and teachings to those heretics who refused to worship the Emperor.
To supervise and strengthen the warrior's faith in the Emperor at all times, the Primarch established the role of chaplain within the Legion. In a sense, it could be said that precisely because of Lorgar leading the word-bearers, they became the most loyal group to the Emperor among all legions at the time, for they directly regarded the Emperor as their god.
In 903.M30, to demonstrate their faith, the word-bearers built a temple city dedicated to worshipping and proclaiming the Emperor's divinity on a planet called Kur. This city, Monarchia, was called the Perfect City by the word-bearers. It contained massive temples dedicated to the Emperor, and its inhabitants were the most devout believers. They sang praises to the Emperor daily and wrote various holy scriptures. The believers regarded the Emperor as the God Emperor, and the Astartes who inherited the God Emperor's bloodline were called angels. Because the Word-Bearers Legion would stay for a long time on every world they conquered to conduct religious propagation and preaching, their efficiency in the Great Crusade was the slowest. The 17th Legion spent too much time on their faith, while the Emperor was waiting for them to conquer the galaxy. Finally, after several warnings went unheeded, the Emperor decided to sanction Lorgar and his legion. In 964.M30, the Emperor ordered the staunch supporter of the imperial truth, Primarch Robute Guilliman, and his 13th Legion, the Ultramarines, to go with himself and Malcador the Sigillite to punish the word-bearers. The Emperor wanted to teach Lorgar a lesson by destroying his perfect city. Carrying the Emperor's will, the warriors of Ultramarines descended upon the city. They demanded the citizens evacuate within 6 days, for on the 7th day, the Ultramarines' warships would launch an orbital bombardment to level everything to the ground. This was a harsh decision, especially for the local residents. In their eyes, they had always devoutly worshipped the great God Emperor, but now the God Emperor had inexplicably sent his angels to destroy their home. The Ultramarines supervised the evacuation of the city. The believers called these blue giants false angels. When non-cooperative resistance appeared in the crowd, these mortals invited the harsh suppression of the 13th Legion Astartes. Many bloody incidents occurred during these 6 days. Finally, on the 7th day, the warships bombarded the city from orbit as promised. Only then did Lorgar and the word-bearers, who were on missions in other star systems, received the notification. They rushed back to Kur, but when the 17th Legion arrived, the once perfect city had become a ruin. Lorgar angrily questioned his brother Guilliman and Malcador regarding the reason for destroying the city.
Just as the agitated Lorgar was making the situation increasingly out of control, the Emperor appeared. He used his immense psychic power to suppress the Primarch and his legionaries. Afterward, the Emperor forced Lorgar and his warriors to kneel in the ruins of the perfect city to reflect on their sins. He rebuked the word-bearers' religious faith and once again denied his divinity. At the same time, the Emperor demanded that Lorgar never touch the red line of religion again,
and that he should take the silent Primarch beside him, Robute Guilliman, as an example to truly accept the imperial truth and accelerate the 17th Legion's crusade. After that, the Emperor and his entourage left the planet, while the word-bearers, especially their Primarch, remained kneeling for a long time, unable to stand. Shortly after this event, the word-bearers seemed to have truly repented. They began to bury themselves in the work of the Great Crusade, reclaiming world after world for the Imperium with surprising efficiency. The Emperor also accepted Lorgar's change with satisfaction. But as we know, things were not that simple. Perhaps the seeds of chaos had been planted long ago, but at this moment they truly sprouted. The Monarchia event shocked Lorgar. It was a devastating blow to his faith. The Emperor unreservedly humiliated the 17th Legion and personally destroyed and spat upon their worship of him. Lorgar fell into confusion. Just then, the chaos forces that had long lurked within his legion saw the cracks in the Primarch's heart. Two individuals who had secretly turned to the worship of the ancient chaos gods, Lorgar's foster father Kor Phaeron and the first chaplain of the word-bearers, Erebus, began to whisper their doubts about the Emperor's authority to the conflicted Primarch. They guided the Primarch to seek the revelation of the true gods of the universe. The Primarch's thoughts were slowly polluted by whispers from the warp. While conducting the Great Crusade, Lorgar studied various theological books with these two, which once again affirmed his views on religion. The pursuit of faith is human nature, and humans can only find true happiness with the help of religion. Under the whispers of the snake-like Kor Phaeron and Erebus, Lorgar began his pilgrimage to find where the true gods resided. In 967 M30, Lorgar entered the warp rift known as the Eye of Terror.
This rift was the massive tear created 200 years prior by the birth cry of the fourth chaos god, Slaanesh, born from the fall of the Eldar. It is a fantastical location where real space and the warp mix. Violent energy pours out through this rift, and parts of real space and planets were swallowed into the warp. It was here that Lorgar witnessed the true gods and the universal truth they spoke of. Now Lorgar knew that the imperial truth preached by the hypocritical emperor was nonsense. Gods did exist in the universe. At the same time, he was shown the terrifying future of the galaxy. If humanity did not accept chaos, their fate would be the same as the fallen Eldar. The experience in the Eye of Terror forever changed the Primarch. Lorgar made his choice. He would oppose the Emperor and become a servant of chaos. After leaving the Eye of Terror, Kor Phaeron and Erebus helped Lorgar convert the entire Legion's ideology, twisting it towards chaos. The Word-Bearers fell. Among them, the first batch of Chaos Space Marines was born. However, the Word-Bearers did not rush to make their stance public, because Lorgar knew that they were still weak and isolated compared to the entire Imperium. A single legion could not stand against the other Primarchs under the Emperor. To better overthrow the Emperor and bring the glory of the true gods to the galaxy, the Word-Bearers began to closely contact other legions, testing their brothers' attitudes. Relying on their preaching skills, they intentionally or unintentionally spread these thoughts to other Astartes. They hoped to rally as much strength as possible to their side. Thus, after decades of dormancy, in the early 31st millennium, when the Great Crusade was drawing to a close, the Emperor granted Horus the title of Warmaster and returned to Terra himself. Because of this event, all Astartes legions and their Primarchs were shaken to varying degrees. The Word-Bearers knew the time for action had come. The gods of the warp would support their actions. Lorgar wanted the first among Primarchs, Warmaster Horus, to become his ally. Through Horus, chaos would gain the power in the material universe to fight the Emperor. Under the arrangement of First Chaplain Erebus, a blade filled with warp power had been entrusted to a pawn. The assassin would strike, Horus would fall, the false Emperor would be overthrown, the true word would be revealed, and chaos would rise from the warp.